this computer.
This meeting is being recorded.
Fine.
Hey everyone, it's Greg, Rich, and Rachel. Scott is out of town. He's down in Austin for a bit, and we're jumping into podcast for this week. Today we're having a conversation on how to live out your faith. The question we got a lot was, how do we do it? What is it supposed to look like? And I don't know if we give any answers, but that's where we are kind of starting today. So how to live out our faith.
Our topic is just like, I just don't know how to do this. So it's faith, but it's also everything.
Is it
I feel
everything?
like
I wasn't sure if the question was like, I don't know how to do faith, or I just don't know how to
do this,
do life.
whatever this is. I think it's life. Like that's how I took it, is when I was processing through, is just how to do life. And like I really appreciated some of the things that when we were talking through this topic about the small steps and just how I feel like when we think about how to do life, it's like I feel like I need to have all the answers immediately. Go to the other side, already know the answers, know what's coming, know the whole deal. But it's really about the small steps and the daily grind of it all.
Yeah. It's almost like you think, like I always think little kids, babies and stuff, they have this natural instinct to push boundaries because they want to know what's okay, what's not. And so
Yeah.
they just, the way they do it is just doing things.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's horrific and other times it's cute and funny. And I think I like to think of us, we're just those little kids and we're just like,
Just little babies in this
what
giant
if we do
world.
it this way? What if
We'll
this works?
try.
And sometimes it's awesome and sometimes it's terrible.
Mhm.
But
Yeah. One
I
of
mean,
the, go ahead.
It's like, it's like, we've got new coffee shop seasonal specials coming out. And there was a lot of trial and error put in that what tastes good.
Yeah.
And some of it was bad. It's just, no.
Yeah. I started this new meal planning thing and trying to make it easier to cook from home. And part of that was making a huge batch of chicken, like at the beginning of the week, which some of us here don't think is real meat. Is that what it is? Oh, never mind.
chicken has a lot of protein.
It does have a lot of
It's
protein.
just not my preferred
Yeah.
meal if I'm gonna eat it.
No, it's true. I agree. But so I made this huge batch of chicken and I pulled it out and like it was good in meals, but like by itself, it tasted like boiled chicken. And I'm like, this is not
good.
something I ever want to eat, ever. But in the meals, once I added everything, it was fine. But you have to try.
Yeah.
Try and make mistakes.
Yeah, and like you said, I think the thing that just like every time I went to work on this and think about this, it was always those like our life becomes a culmination of just a bunch of little things.
Yeah.
Like we have big moments in life, but they're usually also a culmination of a bunch of little things. Like getting married is a big deal, but also there's a lot of little moments that
Yeah.
led up to that.
Yeah.
And everything we do, just in like relationship or work, it's like it's the little daily things that really shape our long-term goals. Or even when you look back, I think I wrote a little bit in there, and I think I probably said it earlier, but it was like I was on sabbatical and played a lot of disc golf this year, and this one tournament, this kid's mom came up to me and she said, "Wow, you have such a gift. It's so fun to watch you throw." And it almost made me upset because I'd like put so much work and effort into it. And I think we can really simplify other people often. Like we can look at them and be like, why is it so easy for them? Or they get, it just came naturally, all these things. But the reality is anything worthwhile is worth work, and people put in work for those things. So
Yeah.
that's really what kept resonating with me over and over as we're working on this.
The thing that I got out of like just thinking through the questions of how do I do this thing? How do I do this thing? I just don't know how to do it. Is we talk a lot about why would anyone want to do it by themselves? And I think I just don't know how to do this. How do I do it? The answer is not by yourself.
Yeah.
Like, because there's a lot of things that you can attempt on your own, but you can only go so far with the giftings that you have.
Yeah.
So the community aspect is important.
one of the quotes I think about a lot is Brene Brown. And she says, be awkward, brave, and kind. And I feel like a lot of these things require a willingness to be a little awkward sometimes, like trying something new or stepping out into something you haven't done in a while, or just feeling like just that awkward, I'm gonna do this even though I may look weird or I might do it wrong, or just it's uncomfortable, and just the bravery that goes with that too. Like I feel like there's moments at the coffee shop where there's somebody that I've seen before and I feel like, okay, I want to say hi to them, I want to connect with them, but it feels awkward just because maybe I didn't actually meet them ever and I'm just making this up in my head, which I have done before. But just being willing to be awkward, or I thought a lot about like the daily life living, not just like in the faith aspect, but being in community. And I feel like there's sometimes where we have neighbors that don't come out of their house a lot, or you don't see them very often, or maybe you're the one that doesn't come out of your house a lot. And just that small step of saying, yeah, great. And sometimes I don't want to come out of my house, but like that small step of saying hi to a neighbor and just like saying, like actually being awkward and willing to do that first step when maybe you've known them for 5, or maybe they've been your neighbor for years and you've never said hi to them. But that small moment and what that builds up into, like if you're that neighbor that, you know, says hello, how are you, and cares about your neighbors, maybe most of the time it's not a big deal. But when you've done that for a long time, when your neighbors are facing some sort of crisis, they know you care about them. And there's sometimes opportunity to be there for a neighbor.
Yeah.
And just like when we were talking about discipleship last week, like discipleship isn't, I don't know.
Yeah.
Discipleship, introducing people to Jesus doesn't have to be this.
There's groundwork required
Right.
to achieve most things. Like
Mhm.
you're using your neighbor example, it's like if your goal is to care for your neighbor, well, that's really big and could mean a million different things. And sometimes you're like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know what they like.
I don't have
I don't
capacity for it.
Yeah, all these excuses.
Mhm.
But if we're able to take the big goals of life and break them down to like, okay, what does it actually mean to care for a neighbor? Well, it could mean these 100 different little things. Okay, which one am I gonna do this week?
Mhm.
Is it
Yeah.
waving as I go by? Like
Yeah.
those little things like really add up. I have a neighbor named Oscar. He's an older grumpy guy, and he like for the first couple of years living there, I would wave to him every time we went by. He would never wave at me. And then one day they were having a garage sale, so I walked down there and I talked with him a little bit, got to know each other, and he told me I don't wave to people that I don't know. And so that's what I learned. I was like, oh, this whole time he just didn't wave because he didn't know me. And now every time he sees me, he waves.
Because we're friends now. I love
It's just
it.
like that little thing is like, it
Yeah.
seems so minimal, but
Yeah.
it makes a big difference. And I think it's like a big part of why the coffee shop aspect is important to the ministry
Yeah.
we do, because we get normal interactions with people who
Mhm.
may not want anything to do with Christianity or the church.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get to do that process of redefinition, which is not a big thing. Like
Right.
it's not sitting somebody down and forcing a debate on
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's this process of these little things that really start to inform
Mhm.
their reality.
Mhm.
And I think like you're talking about being awkward, being willing to be awkward.
Mhm.
I think most interesting thing too for personal growth is like getting to the point of where you are 100% you every single time you see
Yeah.
someone, and sometimes that's awkward. Like
Yeah,
that's just how it
absolutely.
works.
Mhm.
But then one of the things I was writing in here that Greg touched on a second ago is if you're always focusing on the big, the giant, like here's my monumental goal,
Yeah.
then you don't do the little things to get there. It's like, well, I'm gonna gotta do this right now.
Yeah.
But you don't realize that there's 1,000 tiny steps to get there.
Yep.
So when I was writing, I mean, it was the other day when we were sitting around the table, and I just mentioned that there's a phrase that's just perfect is the enemy of good,
Mhm.
because that pretty much, if you're looking on the perfection of it and just like it has to be perfect, this is the big goal,
Mhm.
then you don't do the little good things that will
Yeah.
get you closer and closer, or even like are just a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just.
Mike and I were like with that, Mike and I were talking a little bit, and I don't understand software development, so, you know, I'm based for this whole thing.
I'm really excited for this.
Oh, good.
Yes.
We
Be
have
be
this-
willing to be
I'm-
awkward.
I do that well. But we were just talking about when like Mike was working on a program that wasn't going well, which again, I don't know what that means, but things weren't working. And he was talking about how the person that created the program didn't really see all the places it touched. And so when they built it, like they built it one way, but they weren't able to make changes later because it touched too many other programs and yeah, anyways. But like it just made me go, okay, like it's so easy to think the perfect is the enemy of good. Like Mike spends so much of his job fixing problems that it's really easy to think I have to have all the answers before I build this, before I create this, before I move forward. But at the same time, like all those little steps, every time he fixes a problem, every time he builds something new, or every time he's able to, like it makes everything just function so much better. And he could really easily just get stuck and like, just like all of us sometimes does, being overwhelmed by like I talked a little bit about the what if monster, like what if I do this, or what if I do that, or
Analysis
yeah,
paralysis.
like that's his favorite. But like how when you know how these things impact each other, it can be so overwhelming, but he has to move forward. He has to be willing to do that, because if he wouldn't have a job if he did it, you know, but
Well, any job,
yeah,
right?
right,
Yeah.
right, yes.
You have to, I'm amazed when people take new jobs, that they just usually have no clue what they're actually getting into.
Mhm, mhm.
But then they're gonna spend 40 hours of their week
Trying to
figure it out.
figure it out.
It's great.
Mhm.
It's great.
And then
It is
once they figure it out, if they figure it out good, people go, oh, you figured that out good, figure this out good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one more time.
Yeah, that's true.
But some of the bigger things, like this was I just noticed some examples of people letting fear kind of stop them just in the Bible, reading through stories. And like we talk a lot about how these stories aren't always necessarily telling us how to live our character out. But if I didn't say that well, but we've talked about that a few times. But what I did see was just moments of, hey, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one. And I just like Moses not being afraid of speaking and like not being trusted by the people, and like just at the end was like, please just send somebody else. Don't let it be me. I just want someone else to do this. Or there's another story of Gideon fighting the Midianites, and he was talking about like the Midianites came and basically destroyed Israel where Gideon was, and God came to him and he's like, I am not only part of the weakest clan in this, like I can't win this war, I'm part of the weakest clan, and I'm the weakest in this clan. Like not only is this weak, but I am the weakest among them all. And then Jeremiah just talking about how young he was and how he couldn't do the things God was calling him to do. I feel like it's so easy for me, and these are big stories, these are big moments in the Bible, but it's really easy for me to have a list of why I can't do something, or why I'm afraid, or letting that fear win. But it was really, I don't know, like one of my favorite verses is Joshua 1:9, and I'm not even gonna be able to remember it now, but it's basically be strong and courageous because I am with you. And just like that community piece, not feeling alone, not feeling like I have to do all this alone, not feeling like my faith is only on my shoulders, but God is partnering with us. Like I felt like that was just a really important moment to go, okay, like
I'm glad you bring that up, because I really feel like I grew up in a Christianity that you had to be good enough for God to use you.
right.
Like you had to qualify for it.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that was necessarily intentional, but that's definitely like,
Mhm.
there's definitely a
That's
part of
the
that of
thing
like,
that's like-
I need to be self-reliant so that I have to have everything figured out. But then you look at who God actually chose to use, and it's usually the least qualified
Mhm.
or
over and over
messy
again,
and
yeah.
all these things. And so that should be not encouraging to not take responsibility for ourselves, but it should be like when life feels hard, that's
Yeah.
probably when God is closest, and that's probably when God is using you the most.
Yeah.
And that both is awesome and sucks at the same time.
Awesome and sucks, yeah, that's big, that's really big,
Mm.
agreed.
Yeah, so
I like it.
that's where we're gonna go on Sunday. A lot more conversation. Hope you guys can join us at one of the corner church locations in North Loop, Uptown, Camden, or Northeast. Have a good week.
See you.